on, though?
Yeah, great. So we're live. Darrell and Adam. What's going on? Darrell, what's your last name?
Leffingwell.
Leffingwell. Darrell Leffingwell. Awesome.
Yeah,
Pleasure to have you.
a lot of people say laughing well. You know, it's okay. That's fine.
Nice.
You know, living well. I guess that's trying to. Yes, Leffingwell.
Yeah, and you mentioned you're from around here. What part specifically?
Yeah, actually, I grew up and was native Ohio from Lawrence County. I grew up in a little tiny area called Scotttown, Ohio, and its extensions, Getaway, Steel Trap, little places where moonshiners used to hang out back in the day. So,
Nice.
Some old school stuff.
Yeah, that's
yes,
cool.
but I eventually ended up in Gallia County. I graduated from Point Pleasant, West Virginia
Nice.
in 1991.
Cool.
So yeah, this is pretty much home for me, and I've been an old, not your typical weekend warrior, but your biker. I used to be with Chapter 3750 in Gallia. I rode with them for a number of years, and then my motorcycle got stolen here a couple of years back. So you know that kind of put an end to that. Just snuffed some of that out, but you know I had some other issues too, so it was just meant to fade off.
Yeah.
Some of them old outlaw days.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But that's my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And really, I think kind of, what brought us together was Adam from Coolville Organics.
Yes,
you mentioned that you would be an interesting guy to talk to, and it's what's really funny is that when you were on the pod, Adam, you mentioned that you are like kind of a mycelium and you act as such to bring the network together. And I mean, you consistently back that up with action, and that's really great. But yeah, that's what got us in the room together today. Mr. Sheff,
yeah. Adam gave me an invite to come out. This is my first podcast, actually.
Yeah.
I've been kind of hit up multiple times over the past 7 years. I started a nonprofit in the state of Ohio.
What's the name of it?
Ohio Veterans Alliance for Medical Cannabis. We were established in 2019, and I decided to do that to protect some legacy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we'll get to that in a little bit. But I started that for the veterans primarily because 27 years of growing in the wilderness after my service.
So thank you for that.
Yes, I practiced shamanic healing ways and lived in the wilderness in the middle of Wayne National Forest, tucked away on a little private farm. A little 500-acre farm that eventually got...
little 500-acre?
Yeah, a little 500-acre farm. But I was surrounded by 6.5 square miles of Wayne National Forest. So for 27 years, I had access to all that prime climatological enclaves that was able to keep some of these legacy strains alive over the years that I was rather entrusted with, and provided a lot of medicine, a lot of strains, and a lot of cannabis to people in that area. Gallia, Lawrence, Meigs, parts of Jackson County. I wasn't your typical closet grower. I would take horseback rides and stuff like that. But I guess ultimately, I don't want to take away from anything right off the bat. I wanted to give Adam credit for getting me in here because over the past 7 years, nobody's been able to get me to. I'm kind of left breadcrumbs here and there.
I'm humbled.
Being an old outlaw, we kind of tend to fall in. Our old habits are kind of hard to break. It's kind of, even though I came out of the jungle, I'm still kind of like trying to get back to the jungle now. It was like the industry's kind of left me with some sore spots. When I came out, they kind of snatched me up and they seen what I was doing and what potential I had and what I was doing with the veterans and trying to get established in the state. So I've been like shadow banned and been taken advantage of and people's tried to discredit me along the way and everything, but I don't have nothing to prove to anybody. My past speaks for itself, so to say, and I've kind of left it there. I'm kind of moving on with different things. I've shed a lot of skins along the way, I guess you can say, and it's taken me a long time to even just get to where I'm at now. So I've been really active in the State House, just like Adam. We met at the State House, actually.
Oh, okay.
And I think we'd crossed paths. I was at one of the Stargazers events. My sons and I, we also have a soil amendments business called Green Roots, where we do fully inoculated living biochar soil amendments with proprietary blends that I've been working with for like 9 years now. Developed some recipes for that, so we kind of keep it minimal, and I needed something for my boys to kind of build upon, rather that just went into cannabis. You know what I mean?
No, it's cool. That's family business too.
So it's a veteran family-owned business. So my sons were all equal share owners in the business, and my son Christian and Aiden, I'm really proud of them. They also work in the industry. I will say they work at Paragon Cannabis in Ohio.
Cool.
So I have to be careful about some of the things I talk about related to their job. I'm also employed there, but I'm out of work right now. We can probably get into some of that later. I'm sure you're probably not real restricted on time, right?
I mean, I'm not.
I know we want to get down to the Cannabis Museum at some time or other. We got some grow classes and stuff, and I want it'll be my first time going to the Cannabis Museum too.
Awesome.
Because of,
mine as well.
Yeah, I've been kind of kept myself kind of quiet and under wraps for a good while, and for good reason too. Death threats and other things I received because being an old biker and an old outlaw and growing for all them years, you've got people that have different ideas and different standards, and there's just some things when you came from an old Meg's Gold Line family tree, there's just some things you don't talk about, man, and that's what I was told. So until that time was appropriate, until that time presented itself, to protect family members and something that's been developed and been growing since 1967, that my dad and other veterans brought it here before the mob took over that. Hold those legacy strains.
Where did that come from, Darrell?
Are you referring to the Meg's Gold strains and lines and stuff?
What they brought, yes, sir.
Well, that's a lot of those strains come back from Vietnam era. They brought a lot of those phenotypes. We're jumping in real quick.
Sorry.
That's okay, man. But anyhow, my dad, I share the same name as my dad did, Darrell Leffingwell. I had an alias name too that I used as a biker. My alias name and my genetics name I use is Wildman Morrison. That name was given to me by family and a couple other friends from running out in the Wayne National Forest. So I became a naturalist out there in the Wayne National Forest, and I had my grandfather. We also had a mining company out there. So while I was in that, I was involved with the state and everything. So I had some kind of liberties and protections. I had the freedom to be able to do some of those things that other people probably couldn't do, and had access to all that private property and everything. And so for 27 years, I kept a lot of those strains alive. A lot of the original Meg's Gold lines, there's like 5 phenotypes. Some of them started changing around 76 to 79. But a lot of those strains actually come from like southern India. Some of the original strains that's in the Meg's Gold line is like a lot of people don't know what's in the Skunk Number 2 lines. That's like an Afghan and Colombian Gold Cross.
Now, when you're talking about these lines, so you mean like the original like kind of plant?
Yeah,
and then you start crossbreeding it with stuff?
Yes, before it was all crossbred and a lot of the hemp strains, a lot of the stuff that was already growing here in Ohio and across America, and they was able to just blend and hide that stuff in. A lot of that was before my time, before I was born. So I was just born into that outlaw way of life. And my dad was, he was a drug lord. He was instrumental in a lot of the distribution that went on and a lot of the growing and a lot of the friends. And he was found in Scottown, Ohio. A lot of those strains developed. Actually, I could go back and tell that story, but that's my dad's story, So let's be clear about that. I'm talking about the past.
Yeah.
And I will be really clear about this. A lot of those original strains, they're dead and gone now, man. I'm sure that there are some legacy growers that are holding on to some beans, and they're probably still growing some of it. I don't doubt that at all, as well as myself.
Yeah.
That's not untypical, because a lot of us haven't even came out of the jungle yet, till now. And I think this podcast will help too, because we got to end the stigmas, we got to end the fear, we got to end the threats, the violence, and all the other stuff that's attached to it. You know what I mean? To really come
Absolutely.
full fruit, and to get the things done we need to get done in the state house too, to work with the state as well, and to find some. I don't believe in the control, but I do believe in a regulated market that is safe.
Could you expand on that? Like, differentiate those for me.
Well, let's go back and finish what I was
absolutely.
talking about first, because I get jumping around a lot sometimes.
No worries. Me too. I'm back.
And I've medicated, so I'm trying to stay on point. We was talking earlier about how medication helps you bring what you need focus to. It puts away the things in the back of your mind, like thinking about the PTSD and the trauma that's associated, because this is why I have not done any conversations or any podcast or anything, because of the death threats that I've received. The threat, just the scare tactics, fear. Well, I can't live in fear the rest of my life. Now's the time. So I've got to step up. It's time to step up again. You know what I mean? Like I did a long time ago, 7 years ago when I came out of the jungle. Now it's time to step up again too, because I feel like if I don't, I'm doing an injustice to my ancestors and my family, and all the struggles that they went through, and all the deaths and everything that was associated with that outlaw way of life, man, and how it just becomes so mob run and controlled, and how it affected so many businesses, and how it brought so much money into a community that was decimated many years ago by the revenuers. So, all that trickled effect, all that went down through the lines, through the Appalachians, and they followed all the moonshine trails, and all that trickled from the families and followed the same lines, the same corn whiskey rows all the way down into Virginia. And that's the bikers and the veterans and the moonshiners and the farmers are responsible for the actual distribution of all those strains that the veterans sent. Again, here we go back to Sacramento, California, 1967, 1965, okay, when people were coming out of the war, coming from Vietnam. Well, my dad, he was a mailman in the Army, okay, and he had a lot of connections. When you're a mailman, I think you've probably seen some of them movies, that Platoon movies, and a couple where they, it's the mailman, he's got the whiskey, he's got everything you need, you know what I mean, he's able to hook everybody up. Well, my dad was that guy. He was very social, there and everything. I wished I would have brought the photo inside, but I knew this wasn't kind of like a live thing. It was just a radio thing. But I have a picture that I've shared with people over the years, and it shows my dad. And it's in Frankfurt, Germany, in East Germany. He's got his nose down in a bag. I think the picture is like maybe 1965 or somewhere around in there. And it was rescued from a fire from a long time ago. There's a long, long history. But I don't know if we'd be able to fit all this in one session or not, bro. But anyhow, he's got his nose in the bag, and on the back of it, you turn it around, and he's talking about his buddies and where he got it from and everything. And I know some of them were Ghost. Some of their names were Ghost. They just went by nicknames.
Yeah.
And my dad, he went by Buckeye, and he also went by a family name by Julesy. So, before there was Buckeye and MASH and stuff, there was Dad. He was a Buckeye, and the Buckeye leaf. So I had his old helmet. It had a marijuana leaf on the side of it, It was pretty commonplace for veterans to bring a lot of stuff back. Well, my dad being a mailman in the Army, he had access to embark orders, and they used the good old U.S. Army to help bring a lot of them strains back in sea bags and embark and stuff, and they'd put it on the planes, and those planes were coincidentally, which I don't believe in coincidences, but they were nicknamed mules, because I've rode in these planes before by the United States Air Force. They call them mules, and they would just basically pack these in there. They were mainly used to haul troops around with and their luggage and everything, and they would just pack them in there. Those would be like embark flights and stuff. And they'd put them on there, and they would just send them back in sea bags. And you'd get about a foot of cannabis. It was just different, all kinds of different things, whatever they would run into over there, and a lot of Thai strains, a lot of Southern Indica strains, which some of those were defined later on as time went on. And then you'd get like a whole other foot of nothing but seeds down in the bottom of it, So, you'd open up them little seed bags, and I'm sure there's some veterans out there that probably still have some of them seed bags probably stuffed up in the top of their, garage. I've actually run into a couple of few. So
that's so cool.
And so it's been kind of cool, coming out has also, it's allowed people to feel more comfortable about sharing some of those things too, about some of those old outlaw ways and growing in their barns and in their basements, wherever they could, closets, sheds, there's a whole other history though too. I mean, there's some old bunkers up around in Lancaster up in there where the government was growing all the purple strains for a number of years, all the GDP strains, and the Army National Guard was responsible in harvesting all. And I know people, I've got friends that work there. They're still alive. They was in there picking the buds. So there's the history here in Ohio runs very, very deep. My connection come in much later after I got out of the Marine Corps. Of course, my dad and all his buddies and all his bikers, all the old varmints and people from in this area, you know what I mean? They all was really responsible and instrumental in that. But my dad had a carpet store, so they would use that to transport the cannabis because it smelled just like the Megs. A lot of those Meg strains at that time in the early '80s and mid '80s smelled like fresh jute pack carpet. I mean, it was very distinct. I mean, a very distinct odor and smell to the Meg's lines. Even all the phenos that carried through, because then they would just cross things like, I think in '79 they crossed like a Corella line in it, and that's from the Coorcoman Valley. It's called the Valley of the Gods, and it's a southern India strain, and it grows. That's what stretched out the buds and made them like 4 foot tall and made them look like Christmas trees. And it also introduced a purple pheno into the Meg's line, because all the Meg's lines were just basically skunk and gold until they acquired some of these other things, as time went on. When it got in the 80s and you started seeing the High Times magazines and all the stuff started popping, and culture and everything changed, and then the Prohibition that even drove it even more, that's what's happening now again, history repeating itself, and we don't want that to happen, because that just creates more problems. But anyhow, coming forward with all that, when I came out of the Marine Corps, I was on 27 different medicines a day. And those medicines were killing me. Some of them, they medicated me into manias. And then I was able to actually get some actual help when I went back to college. I took advantage of a vocational rehabilitation program and ended up going back to Rio Grande Community College. Because when I got out of the Corps, I went to work for Battle Ridge Companies out of Bell, West Virginia. I was a heavy equipment operator, grade checker, surveyor, done a lot of stuff over the years. Coming out of the Marine Corps, had a lot of cross-training and reverse osmosis, so I was really familiar with earth and soils even from a young child, because I grew up underneath my dad's that legacy. I mean, hauling, rowing between the corns. If I cut the wrong plant down between the corn rows, I didn't get a belt whooping. I got beat. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was different back then. That was kind of accepted at that time. It was just a different time. I mean, but anyhow, from that time, I grew up on a little tiny house. It's all tore down now. It's on Polka Dot. It was right in the middle of Scotttown High. And my mom washed clothes in a little sewer creek, and we pulled water out of a well with a bucket.
Wow.
So I came from a whole different way of life than most people were even aware of.
Do you think that set you up for like the Wayne National stuff? Just kind of like.
I think it did. I think my whole it's like I've been through all these perils and trials and different things, and the whole history and everything is just like part of my life. Like, some of it's being relived from way back further times, even before. Just an energy, like we talked about energies and vibes and how you feel certain ways and certain things. And it's not so much about a religion thing. Let's not get sidetracked, okay? But I was, yes, I do, to answer that, yes, I do feel like all that led up to that where I was at, and that because I had to go there to heal myself. Because I wasn't finding, I've already researched and educated myself in public relations and environmental sciences. I tried to help myself, and thinking education would help heal me. Like, the more I could learn, my brain, and that I would be able to, because I already been to some of the nation's leading psychologists and stuff while I was in the Marine Corps. So on my discharge of March 1st, 1995, that was, I got out a year early because I was on the medical board. And they attached, I've been fighting the Veterans Administration for, 20, since that time. I received like a 40% rating or something from the VA, and I'm on
40% disability. You mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a 40% disabled, but I should have more than that because a lot of the things that I have going on with me is related and stemmed back. Some of the physical ailments, maybe not so much the mental incapacitations, so to say, with the PTSD and trauma from early childhood, but it was definitely exacerbated by military service.
Certainly.
And that's where a lot of my PTSD comes from and everything. So I don't like hostile environments. I don't like a lot of screaming and yelling, even though I get loud myself. And a lot of it's because I've lost my hearing in motorcycle pipes and working on the flight line.
Heavy equipment,
Harrier jets and everything. So I'm very boisterous too. So anyhow, to get through all this, I got out of the service. I went to work for Battle Ridge Companies. I was a grade checker, surveyor, heavy equipment operator. At that same time, I became a fly fishing guide and instructor because when I was in the Corps, I was a bass fisherman.
Cool.
I used to fish like amateur division in the Bass Pro Tournament divisions. So it was pretty cool. I was going my way up, and I remember my wife at the time, my ex-wife at the time, or she was my wife at the time, my ex-wife now, but I remember she telling me when I went to go get my severance pay, when I went to go pick up my orders and stuff to be out of the Corps or out of the Marine Corps, she goes, "Don't you be coming home with no bass boat. If you do, you might as well just stay down there." And now I wish I would have just bought the boat, man. You know what I'm saying?
Hindsight.
Yeah, because all I did was wind up going and buying a sailboat anyhow, and I bought a bass boat in between that time too. So it still happened. You know what I mean? I still got my way anyhow. So.
Big water guy. Cool.
Yeah, I had to make some choices then. But that brought me back home, and it's been a long journey. It's been a long journey. My oldest son, what brought me out of North Carolina and that way of life, because I was a youth minister and I was on my way to being a preacher.
Oh.
And and I've never used cannabis before.
How old are you right now?
Well, I'm 52.
Oh, sorry. In the point that you're talking about, about becoming a preacher.
You
said you hadn't used cannabis yet.
Yeah, I haven't used cannabis. I haven't used cannabis yet or anything because I always had this stigma and judgment against it too. Because my dad was a drug lord, and everything that happened, all the abuse, everything that happened, I related it to that.
Understood.
Because of what I seen. What I experienced, I knew what was. So I stemmed away and avoided that. If I didn't have my mother's instruction and the love and the fear of God put in me as a child, and then, like I said, not about religion, but more something deeper, a deeper connection now, that I've gotten older and the experiences that I've had, died a couple times and come back, my own experiences in the wilderness. So after all that, my son was born premature. He had developed like a grade 3 head bleed, 4 being the worst. And I remember going and packing all of our stuff up and me having to let the church know, that I'm not going to be able to help foster and minister to the youth anymore. And my whole life changed. So that was one of those sheddings. It was like I was taken off of the mountaintop, put back down in the valley to grow again and learn because I needed to smell a different kind of rose.
It's a beautiful analogy. Yeah.
Okay. And those roses were green. I didn't know
that.
I didn't know those roses. I didn't know those roses then. You know what I mean? I was just very familiar.
Yeah.
I grew up around that.
Yeah, that's crazy that even you started with the stigmatization against the cannabis. That's crazy. Even you're as a proponent now, up testifying.
Yes,
that's crazy.
So I understand both sides of the fence. So, and I can understand the importance of having a safe and not a controlled. Okay, let's take the control out, but a regulated, safe market. Okay, that everybody can participate in, and I'll get to that.
Yeah.
But I want to get to what brought me back to Ohio.
Yeah, beautiful.
And anyhow, my son was born premature. That's what brought us back to Ohio. He was born 3 pounds. He was born like 3 months early. He, developed all those things. So we was at the Cabell Huntington NICU unit. Meanwhile, like 3 months, trying to live before, so I had to wind up moving in with my in-laws. God bless their soul. They rest in peace. My My mother-in-law and father-in-law in-laws, they're gone now. I just recently buried my father-in-law, or my ex-wife's family. So that was very hard because I've not really been accepted, because of my cannabis and my involvement with it and the outlaw way of life growing, everything. So it's been a rough journey. But anyhow, my dad was involved in quite a bit of stuff. I had that carpet store and everything, and trying to get away from all that. And that's why I started the organization, was to turn it around, to end those stigmas, to really give the truth about it. Because I've experienced all those things, like having that scare and fear, like, well, this is going to cause me to lose my shit. Well, people's got to understand. My dad did all kinds of he was a drug lord, man. You know what I mean? He done everything. He done some of that true angel dust back in the day. None of that synthetic stuff. You know what I mean? So I mean.
Well, no, I don't, because I'm 27. But
well,
I've heard.
But there's veterans and people out there that still, and some of that stuff was brought back to the States. You know what I mean? By the veterans. And all that was kind of connected, and all that kind of filtered together and got mashed together. So people's not being able to separate. They just want to put it to the easiest thing that they can put it to, that's the easiest for everything to do, and they've turned cannabis into a drug. It's not. It is a medicinal plant. Okay? And then how we choose to use it decides whether or not it becomes a drug or becomes a handicap to us.
What do you mean by that? Yeah.
Well, I think some people use it as an excuse. I hear a lot of people talking about, well, I'm looking for the new phenos because I get too used to this. Well, maybe you're just using too much, man. You know what I mean? Maybe you're overloading your system. Like certain terpenes, you go with certain terpenes, those will also cause like systematic responses and genome factors. Let's not even talk about the genome. I mean, you're talking to somebody who's probably got a PhD in cannabis and being able to talk about how it affects the body. And also the genome factors, which is really important to talk about at some point, because those affect individuals as a whole. Those are like DNA structures and things where you can go get DNA tests and match your DNA to the appropriate.
I think you mentioned similar
to the appropriate terpenes that you need for your body, just like they can match your body to certain natural medicines that you might need or lacking now, because we have that ability now.
You're talking about analyzing the cannabinoid system?
Yes, the endocannabinoid system. Yes, we all have one. Like everything with a spine has an endocannabinoid system.
Whoa.
They use that. So anything with a spine has an endocannabinoid system.
Okay.
And the only other place it occurs naturally, other than in the plant, there's a couple other plants where this component is also, but very few. And the only other place you're going to find it is in a mother's breast milk. So, and that aids in the development, in the early development, and that's in the colostrum stages of when women are feeding their babies. So, So to the idea to think that cannabis is going to hurt a pregnant lady or that baby, no, it's not going to. It's only going to aid in the health and development of that child's endocannabinoid system. Plus, then we're talking about hybridization of humans.
Well, could I ask you a question real quick? So you mentioned like the breast milk thing. You're saying that if a mother that has not consumed any cannabis like in their system, they will still produce endogenous cannabinoids and pass those.
Yes, that's the only other place that these chemical compounds are found is in a mother's breast milk, and they aid in the development of brain development. Yeah, so I mean that's something to think about. So a lot of research. Some of the world's leading research has been done in Israel. So I've been watching the industry. Like all these times I've been in the wilderness, man. I don't just read High Times. I read national journalisms and university studies and everything in all different aspects and everything that I could. I mean, I'm like a sponge. I just absorbed it all up. They thought something was wrong with me in school and put me in labs and stuff because I was a speed reader in 3rd grade, and some of that stuff is just I'm not going to put myself on a pedestal. I've just been judged and mistreated along the way, and I've lived more of a sheltered life and kind of keep to myself because I don't really interact with people. A lot of people don't understand me, or but I'm all heart, man, and all love. Just
I feel it. I feel it.
Just about healing and trying to do what's right, and support everybody. I even the snakes and stuff. I'll pick them up and I'll be like, it's okay, man. You bite me, it's okay. I'm not going to set you back down in the flame. I'm going to set you over here. You know what I mean? I might pick you up out of the flame. I'm going to set you over here in the grass. So hopefully that'll help you.
That's beautiful.
You know what I'm saying? Like, metaphorically, that's kind of like where I'm at now. You know what I mean? I'm just like trying to move forward in my own life, always forward.
Yeah.
Because there's no going back. You go back to that's just certain death. That's just certain death. I've had to walk away from a whole different way of life. I was almost forced into it, to walk out of it. I had the option I just kind of fell into it naturally. Because like I said, when I got out of the Corps and I come back home and I was faced with all them struggles, I was going back to school. I wasn't finding the help I need. And
were you on these pills?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. When the VA, when I was going to do this Chapter 31, this is what really kind of got me, man. You know what I mean? This is what made me made the ultimate choice right here. So I was on 27 different meds a day, and they were sending me to college, making me go to school like a program, dude. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just a number. I'm just a number. And I had to follow their course. I had to do what they was telling me. Meanwhile, here I am. I'm trying to heal myself naturally. And I don't want to take their pills, man, because I know what they're doing to me at home. I can't make wise decisions. They're medicating me into manias, affecting my home life, turning me into something that I'm not, something that I never was. And just not to mention the suicidal tendencies and everything else that it planted in my mind, and all the other the manias that would throw me into, like psychotic episodes, because they were chemical reactions from these medicines.
How the fuck could you know what you're doing to somebody if you have them on 27 different fucking prescriptions?
Yeah, man.
How the fuck could anybody with competence be like, this is a good idea?
Yeah, and a lot of those things were pain medicines as well, so they were damaging my liver. I've got damage, like when I stood at the podium at the State House, and I talked about like veterans not talking about things like I don't even talk about. Not even able to talk about some of the things that I've got going on with me. Because some of them I don't even know. Yeah. There's no real answers for it. They don't know very little about some of the stuff that's going on with me physically, from taking like anti-nerve agent pills when I was in the Marine Corps, from Gulf War veteran, saying like I was in that time, so I was if you're not battling and you're born in that, you're in that serving that time, you sign the dotted line, well, you're going to be a guinea pig. We're going to use you somehow. We're going to do some experiments. Like, that's the way it is. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's how it was, and then they release all that to the public. Of course, everything filters through all that, and just like now, they're trying to control all that. They don't want people to have, it ain't about it's power for them, but us, it's about a way of life and preservation. It's a culture. It's a community. It's so much more than they don't understand. They don't understand.
They want to dismiss that.
Yeah, they want to dismantle that.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, they want to make it so everybody's going to go to jail for 3 days if you transport your cannabis the wrong way in your car. Mandatory. Now, let me tell you what. Local municipalities are not going to go for that. First of all, they're not going to be able to handle the capacity or the cost involved in that. So where are they going to put all these people? Oh, well, let's bring in the pop-up tents. We'll just put them in there, and we'll make examples of everybody. So let's not. This is America, man. Okay, let's get back to what the people want, what the people voted for, because it's going to go that way anyhow. Mm-hmm. The people's going to have the ultimate say in it. They are the ones that need to get on board.
They being
I guess just
the names of the people that you're speaking to when you're testifying.
The proponents, the ones who proponent, they're all for the control and the over-regulated market and controlling that. They just don't. There's interest groups involved in that.
They're getting pressure from lobbyists.
Yeah, the tier one. We had some people explaining that.
Yes. It gets rather complex.
Understood.
Being from the industry, I got to tread lightly there. You know what I mean? Because I still support the industry as well too, because they are still providing some type of healing.
A lot of people getting medicine.
They're able to get medicine and stuff. And like, what I don't like is how they keep changing the system. Like, these are things that we need to work on. Like, there's a lot of things going on. Like, when it comes to employment, like, I'm not able to be employed right now because I made a choice to secure something that was unsecure in a grow facility because I recognized where it was not supposed to be, and I secured that. And because I left the state and I left it somewhere secured, and I come back, one of the lead growers put out like a false report out on me, man, while the owner was gone from the facility, and then he has to come back and try to unscrew all that. You know what I mean? And the state makes it harder for him, man. Like, I can't even go back to work now, and it's been that way for over almost a year and a half now, and I'm still employed. So right now I'm wrongfully discharged, but I won't seek legal because they're all involved. It don't pay me to.
Yeah.
So that's why I say I got to tread lightly, man. I'm trying to just bid my time, trying to play that game and walk lightly until I'm able to get back to where I belong. Mm-hmm. Because really, I need to be growing on a much larger scale than what I have. Much more hidden talents and abilities, and really, 97% of growing cannabis is maintenance. You know, you got to recognize things when they come up, mm-hmm. and if you're growing healthy, good cannabis, and you got somebody that loves that plant's going to be receptive to that love, no matter what little bit it is, even inside of a facility. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Even indoor. That's just how that plant is designed. That plant's been here since before man arrived. Okay, so that's where I'm trying to get to that. So I come back. I done something. I started growing my own medicine. You know what I mean? And everybody knew what I was doing and smoking. And of course, I became a Harley. I was disabled. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like living a retired lifestyle, man. You know, I'm out in the middle of Wayne National Forest. I'm surrounded by good people. You know, I mean, there's always outlaws. You always got a little trouble with some neighbors, you know, like taking your gas and, you know, or maybe grab a plant or two, you know what I mean, out around your house or something. You know, you always have somebody want to sneak in on you or something. I had a lot of that, you know, so. But, you know, time changes and time goes on. I tried to do something to save myself and my family because I knew how deep it was getting for me, especially after, you know, they'd already been flying around my place and taking pictures of stuff and over the years, you know, and me being involved with the law as well, giving them cannabis so they could set up little thieves who they needed to apprehend and take in. You know what I mean? And I mean,
that's cool.
I mean, if you go back much further, I mean, I mean, it goes back to helicopters getting crashed because they were taking seed crops out, you know what I mean? And they were involved in it too, you know. They were all involved in all that back prior to the time I got out of the Marine Corps in 95, because that's really when things kind of everything started phasing and dying down then. And it was just like small, real knit groups because they'd already knocked everybody out, man. You know, all the big time guys were going. Now it was all just like little local mobsters, you know, little guys that had little businesses running town, controlling all the meth and all the other stuff. So, yeah, it's been kind of shady. It's been like traveled that path too long. The more prohibition we do, we're just driving it back there.
History repeating itself.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen again. So they need to listen to people like me because I've been working for 27 years of my life, crossing certain things to help veterans based upon genomes, like knowing a little bit about their history, knowing how they were raised, knowing a little bit about like whether they were Jewish or German or their nationality, you know, because some of those are hereditary traits that you find, and those go into the DNA structures and stuff. So before there was any testing or anything like that to be able to be done, I would communicate with my veterans and Vikers and be out on the road, man. We'd be smoking, you know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, well, how'd that make you feel, man? And he's like, oh, man, I've got great clarity, man. I feel like I'm sober as I can like function, man. Like I feel like I can operate my motorcycle better the rest of the day. Like I'm gonna have a good day, man. Mm-hmm. You know, so and understanding those terpenes and how they relate to the endocannabinoid system and how they trigger certain responses, and understanding and practicing that, and already been through all that and everything, is I may have been able to quickly identify, and know what needs to be done, like appetite enhancers or, most everything. We got so many Dutch genetics that's polluted the whole market now. Everything's so hybridized. So it's nice to have people like myself, people like Adam, people like Ronnie Smith, who's bringing a lot of the older, some connections we've had over the years and coming out of these shadows. And our past should not define us. It should absolutely refine us and keep us in check and knowing what we're doing about. Because some of us have made conscious decisions to separate ourselves from that outlaw way of life and to be able to choose to do things more positive to help our communities and things without that mob control or government taking control of something that they don't even know nothing about or don't even have the right to be able to even try to control or manage without talking to the people who are responsible for bringing it here in the first place before the mob run controlled groups even. Because we were doing things a long time ago about making our own clothing and our own food and everything was done. I mean, we fed our animals. That's what's wrong now. That's where we poisoned ourselves because we've taken away all that feed from our animals too. So we've inoculated and vaccinated our animals, and
all that comes out in their shit.
Yeah, and it goes in the ground, and then of course the phyto. Let's not talk about phytoremediation because
I don't know what that is. I don't.
Well, that's using hemp and cannabis. No, let's understand cannabis. It's all cannabis sativa.
Can we go back when you were talking about feed for the animals? You're talking about hemp.
Yeah, hemp grain. We won't talk about seed.
Yeah.
People call it seed. We can call it seed or we can call it grain. It depends on how you're growing it.
And so the cannabinoids, someone brought this up with me yesterday. The cannabinoids can translate into the food that we then eat because that livestock had that as a feedstock. They ingest it. We ingest them. And it comes through. Right. That's why I wanted to just clarify that because someone brought that up the other day, and I thought that was wild.
Right, and we're losing all that. That's why we're so sick nowadays, and our animals are sick because we've become too dependent on pharmacy. There is a fine line there. There's a balance. I'm not anti-pharmaceutical necessarily. I am anti-pharmacy companies. Okay, there's a difference there. There's Western medicine has brought some great things I mean, people can call it sorcery or whatever they want, but there's some great minds out there that's doing some great things. I mean, like myself right now, I'm developed an advanced form of Lyme's disease, which is called Morgellons. They also call it Master's disease. So it does not allow me to heal properly. It manufactures these Borrelia that basically stay in my skin. They just kind of there, man, you know what I mean? And they anchor in, and it won't allow my collagen to graft right to heal my skin. So anytime I get a cut or anything, it's kind of like a lesion or anything. It's like it crystallizes up and makes it really scaly and hard. So it's kind of like it scars me up a little bit, but I'm slowly getting a hold of that. And I've been using cannabis, and FICO helps the most because I'm able to use all parts of the plant there to make FICO.
FICO is?
Full extraction cannabis oil.
Yeah.
So you've got RSO, which is more activated. It has more of a THCV compound, which is most of the THCA compounds that are in and a lot of the cannabinoids. FICO allows for more of the full spectrum cannabinoids to be absorbed into your body without burning them off in the RSO effects or ethanol alcohols degrading and burning off some of those cannabinoids the same way like lemon oil would or lemon juice would. You can use lemon juice to cook seafood. You know what I'm saying? So those acids and certain things and certain molecular, we want to talk about molecular things on a molecular level as well, because that's where all of that comes in, like genome factors and everything, because that's something that they don't really teach. I think you had mentioned that in part of your podcast that you was having. I mentioned that they don't really teach that in the medical communities and things, like how things happen naturally, and the systematic responses that takes place, and why it's so important to grow your own medicine. Because in the shamanic beliefs and the rituals and practices, your salt, your saliva that you introduce to that plant. I can go over, I don't think that I don't lick and kiss and give my blood and water to my plants at home. okay? Because when I go to smoke those plants or use those plants, they're already got my DNA coding in them, and they are absorbing more. It's that medicine becomes more soulfully impactful in my life.
Wow.
And heals me more internally, deeper core, in a seed that was planted in me when I was born in 1973. So, and I feel like some of the things that my dad introduced, some of the choices that he made in his life, again, we're talking about hybridization. I believe a lot of the drugs and a lot of the things and those things have heightened our mental capacities, and our brains have become more open and receptive to those things. And those children, like we have indigo children, like we're looking for explanations and answers for everything, like how to cure the nitrates going in the water down in Maryland that's turning the oceans green instead of them being blue. Okay, well, there's solutions for those things, and some of that involves cannabis and biochar and changing our ways and going back to things that were 2,000 years ago practiced that we've not necessarily forgotten about, but we've gotten lazy. We've become too dependent on a system, just like going to the dispensary to get our medicine, that's only going to serve our short-term need. I mean, that's going to help a lot of people, but that's not where the true healing lies. The true healing lies in being able to grow your cannabis, share that medicine with people with like minds, and have those same illnesses and things that you can relate and understand with, and understanding what price was paid, and the bodies and the deaths and everything. You know, people have no idea. They don't know what kind of life that I've had to live, and a bunch of other people like me too that was living out there in the backwoods and in the wilderness. You know, when you come from a place called Steel Trap, that says a lot right there. And it come from Getaway, Ohio. Okay, well, I made my escape. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, or else I would have been living that outlaw life still today. And I would have been just like a lot of other people that has been put in prison for the wrong things, or because of certain things happened and they've had to handle things a certain way, and now they've got a stigma attached to them and stuff, and people don't realize that they were trying to heal then too, and then they just got suffocated and thrown into a system where they didn't belong, and now they're trying to get out and heal their lives and help heal other people, and they've got opportunities to go back to do that now, and the state wants to try to control and take that away after they've given it to us. The people, it ain't that they gave it to us, we voted for that. Let's get it right, okay? Otherwise, we'll just have it wrote into our amendment, and then we'll all be said and done. And then everybody that's in there will just get voted out because you're only going to be there temporarily anyhow, you know, because we're still going to be here. The Meg's Gold name has been here from the beginning, and we're not going anywhere, man. We're family here. There's a name that's attached to that. It's more about the story that's contained than the legacy strains, okay? Let's get it right. It's not about the cannabis that was involved. It's about the families and the lives that it impacted and why it was done, to save communities, to save people's lives, because the revenuers came in there and devastated and took all the moonshiner. Basically, we didn't have any other choice besides growing behind the red brush, you know? And then when the mob seen that we were starting to get in areas where they didn't want us to be, they had to get control of that. Well, the same thing happens. That's the industry. Industry's the mob, okay? And they want control, and they're manipulating the system. Let's just be honest. I call it the way it is. I don't have no fear no more, man. This is who I am. And I'm not going to back down, and I'm not going to make mistakes, and I'm not here to step down anymore or try to make some false claim. I'm here to honor my ancestors, to keep those legacy strains alive and make sure that people receive the healing across the land so our world can heal, man. There's so much more to cannabis than just smoking it and toking it. You know what I mean?
Cheech and Chong, yeah.
The Cheech and Chong thing, that was just movies, man.
Yes.
That was an act. Like even puff, holding it in. You don't want to hold your cannabis in, man. You're only depriving your brain of oxygen when you do that. That's the only buzz you're feeling. because you took some cannabis in and now you're depriving your brain. You actually want to breathe that stuff in, and just you got like fractions of a second where you're going to get the most absorption that you're going to get. Take in that air, breathe in that oxygen, breathe in the life from the tree of life, and breathe it in and just put it right back out there to share. Because let me tell you what, man, there's nothing wrong with what we're doing. Like, some of that's got to end. It's got to end.
Yeah.
And but I've probably talked too much. I rambled on.
Dude, this is amazing. This is going so incredible.
Well, I've bounced around quite a bit.
I don't think so. I think you're stringing it together very, very well.
Well, I'm trying to. I mean, I try to really want to focus more on what I'm doing now.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Life.
You're the captain of the spirit ship.
Well,
yeah.
I don't. That's funny, man.
Yeah.
We might have to take a break here in a minute. You know what I mean? Maybe get a little. Maybe take a little second break or something.
We are back. Great.
Okay.
Darrell Leffingwell.
Get my headphones on here. I've gotten something.
Flip the right one.
We got it.
There you go.
There we go.
Wicked.
I'm back.
We're back.
Yeah, take a little break right there.
So we're moving forward. Darrell Leffingwell.
Yes,
What's
move
next?
forward.
Yeah.
I can't really remember everything we was talking about. Like, my brain starts working like that. I kind of like, so I'm going to move forward and talk more about what I'm doing now. So I came out of the wilderness, started an organization in 2019, started the business with my sons last year, Green Roots, because I already knew that we needed to do something for ourselves, something that we could something my two sons and me could put together, something we could be proud of, and something that we knew enough about, and it's can be applied in many applications, and it keeps us in the cannabis industry as well too, because it helps with a whole bunch of other things. So, like, I'm doing soil amendments and stuff. It's this living biochar. It's all organic. It basically heals the earth, captures carbon, and it's fully inoculated. So we use stuff like kelp meal, bone char.
What does fully inoculated mean?
Okay, well, biochars, when you're using chars or chars of any elements like that, they can either be active or inactive carbon based, like, whether depending on how they're made. Like, and you've also got soft woods, hard woods, bamboo, hemp, and depending on how they make that char, whether they suffocated it and put it in like an incinerator, like in a big machines that don't allow, like, gasification, like you're making a gasifier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's made about the same process, like making charcoal in a kind of a way, but you're basically not letting any oxygen get to that. So when it comes out of there, it's absorbing everything. If you just use a regular char, you're going to get ash, residuals, burn. As soon as that water hits it and everything, you're going to have runoff. You're going to have all kinds of problems. It's going to take like 3 years, okay, for that to really balance out, unless you know what you're doing and you've got soil recipes and you know your ratios and things like that. Well, this is an old, nothing new. It's a 2,000-year-old method. Dates back to the rainforest. And basically, we've just, being fully inoculated, we've already put all the microbes, already put everything into the biochar, different types of biochar too, blended specifically for compounds. So we don't have there's no significant pH changes or values changes that's going to affect your plant in any way, and it's not going to take away from already what's there, but it's going to help improve what's there. So imagine this high-rise tower being built, and it's got all these little compartments in it, and all these compartments now are housed appropriately and grouped together because the mycology and the biomes and the things that's in the soil, and your farm, you got your farm going right, okay? Everything's communicating down there. So we have things, proprietary trace elements that we put in there, like azomite, zeolite, that goes into these compounds, and they help communicate. Whenever this gets activated and you put it in your soil, you can like re-amend old soil. So people don't have to throw away their old soil. You got some old fox farms around. Well, there's a lot of nutrient lockup in that soil. Like, a lot of people's just buying sugar on the shelves, man. Like, that's just sugar on the shelf. Okay? Then you go in there and like, it's just a money thing. It's like, just like going and buying your cannabis and getting the pretty packaging.
Yep.
and everything. It's the same thing for growers. Like, dude, I done it too. When I really got started to growing, I was like, oh man, I'm gonna go get some I'm gonna go get some of this big bud tea. You know what I mean? I do all that. Well, I found out that's not the way, man. I've learned a more different way because I was reading so much and I thought that would affect it, but it's not. I've already had everything I needed. And when you come from nothing and you got shit laying around, when you take that shit and you make something out of it. Like, I wouldn't give lemons even. I was giving shit. Okay? So I took that horse shit, I took the chicken poo, fecal matters, and took all those and blended those together and found out the way to how to balance those using those chars and other elements and how they leach out into the soil and paying attention to how they affecting that plant. And paying attention because one of the most receptive plants that you can have that's going to be affected by environmental factors is cannabis. Like the phytoremediation. That's the process of using cannabis to remove and leach toxins from the soil, like they did this over in Chernobyl. They put the plants in there and they remove. What do they do with all that? I tried to find out what they did with all that toxic plant material. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't know what happened to it. But it can be used in industrial applications, either to make roadways. I imagine they probably burnt it, made ash out of it or something, and probably used it in that form of manner, would be my guess. Mm-hmm. And giving it back to the earth in a way where it's not going to be, it's already absorbed everything in a natural way. So, like that in turn, it's not, they could dispose of it more safely than keeping it where it was at and leaching out into the air and everything. Mm-hmm. So phytoremediation, it can remove toxins out of the ground.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, just like the farm that we have that we can't live in now because of the mining incident and everything that happened, and the family that got a hold of that, they tried to run a nonprofit with horses. The runoff from that killed the horses and stuff that was in there, so it caused a whole series of things, Mm-hmm. And people came back to me, of course, like, well, you're responsible. And I'm like, no, that was my grandfather. I was responsible for some of that stuff, but they removed that element, pushed me out. So, and they didn't do things the right way. So then, that causes all those metals and things were left out on the surface of the soil. So when they get baked by the sun, it raises the pH levels, and there's also gases that get released from those metals. Okay, so they can suffocate and they become very toxic, and the environment becomes toxic, and that drift will actually go into the plants through the dew and stuff. So it makes the plants around there, say, like if you go and you get cut by you're going blackberry picking or something, well, those metals and toxins are now on those plants in that immediate vicinity and area, and it would contaminate, it would burn, they would hurt. They're going to hurt worse than what they would before, cause more infections and cause more problems. And then in turn, that affects the whole ecosystem environment, that imbalance. So this soil amendment we have basically heals all that, man. Uh-huh. It basically absorbs. It's already providing, being fully inoculated. It's already have everything in it that it needs. So it's not taken away from the elements that's already there. Improves what's there. Categorizes and puts it everywhere. Establishes a network to be able to communicate between the soil and the microbes that's in the soil and the plants that you're trying to grow. So everything becomes a living ecosystem almost immediately as soon as you apply these amendments and water in the soil. So what we're doing is something different.
Yeah. Where could somebody find this? Is there a website? Is there
Well, we don't have a web. Like I'm,
Mm-hmm.
Being kind of new, we kind of keep low profile, because I've had a lot of people try to take this recipe from me. I've had to get people to sign NDAs and other things in the effect that way. They've done analysis, like I found out that they've taken it to labs and tried to analyze it and everything. They found out everything in it's all. I found out everything in it's all 100% organic based material. So there's nothing in there that it's just a matter of recipe, and getting it right. And I am working with a company out of state. And I've got some contract negotiations with them that they're actually willing to make bulk supply of this.
So soon to come, great.
Yeah, so I can actually help farmers and actually educate people to teach them and actually do proper analysis and formulate special blends to accommodate agricultural larger scales. So if people have problems like getting stuff to germinate appropriately because it's not certain components and microbes are not in the soil. I can go out and look at that and through it. Right now we just have Instagram, we have a Facebook page, and it's Green Roots Ohio.
Green Roots Ohio.
Yes, and I've got a lot of hashtags I use like Ohio Bio, regenerative agriculture, because that's what we're doing. We're basically regenerating the planet by using our soils, amendments, and stuff. People's able to get some more life out of there. They're not having to use as much water.
Yeah.
They're not having to use as much sugar on the shells, and they're not having to use as much. And the end product is still going to be probably around 30% more on the harvest and yield on the end result, because the microbes and the things that's in there in that immediate vicinity are not having to work or compete with anything. It establishes a balance in that network. So your humic acids and your fulvic acids are not competing with each other, because some of them will lock up in the winter times and different things, So there's different, when you're talking about soil growing in, and we can use these applications, you can use our soil amendments indoors and outdoors, but it's more encouraged to use them outdoors because you're giving back to the earth, and you can keep working with what's there. So they are kind of proprietary, what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool, we're not the only ones out there that have some of these techniques, and there's some others. I mean, I've got some good friends out west that's developed some of these living biochar organics as well. Third Eye Organics, they have a very similar product, and I support. He's a veteran grower too,
Awesome.
so I support them. I think they're from Washington, Oregon-based company. They're working down in Missouri, so I've helped a lot with a lot of those things. But I think we're kind of getting winding down. But I kind of wanted to mention about the organization. That's what I'm really focused in on.
The
now,
nonprofit.
is the nonprofit. I've not asked anybody for money, because as soon as I ask people for money, then I have to start reporting that to the state.
I see.
So, and where I've been shadow banned and where I've had all the problems from both sides of the tracks and both sides of the fence too, I've just kind of kept it kind of neutral. You know what I mean? Just be there for the veterans if they need me. But I am taking memberships now. I want to take an active approach with this, so I can be like the bread house that all the other veterans come to get their money and their resources. They have a trust fund set up within this organization, so I can support people like Ronnie with the things he's wanting to do with home grow veterans and different things, because I've seen that flourish and go on with a bunch of other people, and a lot of people just out for themselves. And I think Ohio we need to have our own thing, man. We don't need to have, we need to focus in on our own people right here, and Athens has a lot to offer this area, and we have a whole lot to give. And we're givers here, the people here, we have a different way about us, and I just hope I can get back home. Right now I'm up in the Springfield area.
Yeah.
I'm living with my sons. I have a sailboat that I keep down in Maryland. I use it. I was up down there for a while, and I Airbnb it. And my friend over here, partner, he got a sailboat too. So I don't know. I think he sold his, but he probably going to be hitting me up. So who knows? We might be making some trips. We might be making some trips here before too long.
How fun!
So, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to trying to get back into some people that's where I've not been able to be connected with a lot of these people because of the life that we've had to live.
Yeah.
And also my involvement in it. Maybe they've got the wrong impression or something over the years. But man, I'm here. I'm family. You know what I mean? I'm not, that whole cannabis community and family, dude, that's where I come from. Yeah, I grew up in that. I was born into it. I couldn't get away. I couldn't get away from it. Even after all that time and all the judgments and the stigma and everything, I come back and started an organization that actually helps change in the laws and advocacy, as well as activism in D.C., plants over pills. I've done a lot of stuff there. I've had a lot of awesome experiences over the past 7 years, even with all the turmoil and some of the trauma and some of the leeches and the succubuses that's come along the way because of who I am and things and the labels that other people have given me. And I'm just a simple, sincere, good old Gallia County boy who's just trying to heal. I'm just an old soil farmer, and I need to get back to doing what I was doing, and I have a lot to contribute to this, to the growth and development. Hemp is definitely in my future because, that's where it's always been. Cannabis for the healing for the heroes, and just keep tracking forward try to keep building this organization up and so I can try to go official with it now. You know what I mean? I feel like I've gotten to the point now where a lot of people's tested me and tried me, and they know I'm not going anywhere. I'm a pretty tough old bird, you know. I'm getting up in years. I'm over 50 now, so, you know, I'm not playing no games or anything. It's time to get on board and let's fire up the engine and get this thing going. That's what I say. I'm ready to get old Smokey running. I'm ready to get back to the jungle and see some fields of cannabis growing, and knowing that the nations are healing and that we're able to make biofuels, and he'll do so many other things other than just helping heal people and patients, because there's a whole other world out there that people need to kind of just open up their mind and focus in on the bigger picture, because it's way bigger than me or anybody else. And
that's awesome to be a part of that. That's awesome.
It is. I'm looking forward to things to come.
Beautiful.
I just take it a day at a time and let it find me. Like today, I'm just about 2 hours away from the boys, but I know we're going down to Cannabis Museum here in a little bit.
Yes,
so
sir.
I'm kind of excited about that. So I know I'm going to get off here and maybe we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Darrell, you're welcome anytime.
Pick my brain a little more along the way. I know a lot of people's tried to pick it along the way. I feel pretty comfortable right here, just right at home here. And know I'm surrounded by good people, and I don't have nothing to worry about.
Perfect. One more time, just shout out where they can find the soil company, the nonprofit.
My nonprofit, I only have a Facebook page right now. I do have a Wix site, and they've kind of taken it away from me a couple times. And Facebook has always threatened me, and I always get harassed. I always get people, but because of the word cannabis, I can't. Yeah. They won't. The robots get it and everything else. So anytime you try to bring it up, it's like anything, you get shut down even trying to get to things. So you actually got to go to the tag, but you can find it. You can find it on my page. You can go. You can find it on a lot of platforms. Yeah. It's out there.
Perfect.
For Ohio Veterans Alliance for Medical Cannabis, and that's service members as well. You know, like our post office guys, you know, because they got trauma too, man. They probably been attacked by a couple dogs and a couple hostile people delivering the mail, you know, and our police officers, you know, people in criminal divisions and stuff. I mean, they've experienced a lot too.
It's for everybody.
Yeah, we're there for them, man. We're there for them. They are veterans too. They've served anybody that's in civil service jobs and things of that nature. They are veterans too. They serve the community, they serve the people, and they've experienced some things. They've had to deal with some things, and we're there for them. People that's like, you know, ambulatory drivers and EMT people, you know, they've seen some stuff, man. So we're there for them too. We consider them veterans as well. So we kind of work on an honor system at OVAMC. You know, we don't ask for any proof of anything. You know, we will have to when we get a members only site, but that'll all be exclusive. So we're working toward that.
Nice.
So we got some challenge. We got some challenger coins coming. Like I've got some cool veterans groups that would like to get in on it too. Nice. You know what I mean? Like I said, and I'm working on a national level as well outside of Ohio with that organization, working in DC and trying to bring a lot of groups together, like Eastern Conference. Like we had some ideas to bring, like having a hash bash for veterans. So I'm trying to start something in like September. I'm going to hopefully have it. It might be real small, it might be big. I don't know. I don't know what my capacity is going to be able to do it financially, but I know I got some people that would probably jump on and support it. So I'm trying to put something together for the veterans, you know, like an exclusive veterans event to bring us all together so we can let go of the egos and really sit down and
heal
talk
together.
Heal together and really see what it's all about. So it's not about like just in it for yourselves or selling a brand or something like we're all like, this is open, this is what it's all about. We need to support each other and lift each other up so we can all be where we belong.
That's beautiful.
Come out of the dark, come out of the shadows. It's time to come to the realization of what we're becoming not just as a country but as a world. Our world's changing and we all have to learn to adapt now. You know, just like we have to adapt to the environments where we're growing the beautiful cannabis, you know, to be able to heal ourselves. So I'm looking forward to it. So thank you for having me. I appreciate that. And like I said, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Green Roots Ohio. On Instagram. Yeah.
Awesome. I appreciate your time, your energy. I mean, your commitment to this, your courage, your vulnerability. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I look forward to the next one we have. I'm looking forward to spending some time with you at the Cannabis Museum. Thanks so much.
I'm looking for some good sesh for the soul time.
Yeah, cool.
It's going.
Awesome. Darrell Leffingwell, thanks so much.
Thank you, man.
Yeah.